From white alpine snows to the colors of the Dolomites and the Trentino meadows, over blue lake waters to castles haunted by stories and legend, and encounters with the sports and traditions of a region that lives in harmony with the mountain and reveals its artistic heritage. Perched at a height of over 700 meters, the San Romedio Sanctuary stands on a rocky summit in the Val di Non. It's a shrine that's been visited for almost 1,000 years. Its 5 chapels rise one above the other, connected by a dizzying stairway. They were built in different periods, from the 11th century onwards. The first chapel dates to Roman times and was created to preserve the saint's remains. The noble Romedio retired here to pray and live a hermit's life, contemplating the mountain's lonely landscapes. It's said that his only company was a bear, which he miraculously tamed after it had attacked his horse. In Val di Sole, the course of the river Noce flows for 80 kilometers from a height of over 3,000 meters. Some whitewater stretches are the haunts of rafting and canoeing experts. And while beginners and enthusiasts challenge the rapids, some practice a much older activity. The Val di Sole, in fact, is rich in iron, and for centuries it's been worked by craftsmen. Luciano Zanoni is one of the last people to follow the traditional wrought iron techniques. His works are inspired by his love for the region of his birth.
I'm a blacksmith's son, and since I was a little boy I've always felt the passion for working iron. It was a tradition in our valley. They're closed now because they've been worked out, but there were mines in the Val di Sole and a tradition of forging iron.
The art of Luciano Zanoni recreates the beauty of trees and nature in iron.
I leave the house, go up into the mountains, find a larch, a plant I like, and I fix it in my head because I don't use cameras and I don't draw. I picture it in my mind's eye just as I want to make it, and if need be, I go back later for the details.
Zanoni's works have become known outside Italy and Europe, recognized as genuine works of art.
International success followed the exhibition I held in Paris. And I did this tree for Bill Gates. Let's say the person was important. And luck can also arrive like that.
La fortuna può anche avvicinarsi in questo modo.
Permanent snow covers more than 6,000 hectares of Trentino. Around 2/3 of this cover Europe's largest glacier, the Adamello Presanella. Trentino's slopes are a year-round kingdom of sport. In winter, many modern ski resorts offer pistes suitable for all levels of skill. The Dolomitic summits of the Brenta Group saw the birth of a father of mountain climbing.
I'm very proud both of being from the Trentino and of being an alpine guide.
Cesare Maestri is a free climbing pioneer. He made his first climbs on peaks that national hero Cesare Battisti described as a forest of towers, needles, and craggy pinnacles. Maestri joined the ranks of climbing greats as the first to challenge the mountain alone, without protection throughout the climb.
I'm credited with being the one who thought it was possible to do alone what others did roped together. I think the Brenta group is the most beautiful in the Dolomites. So it's the most beautiful Dolomitic group in the world. It's stupendous, magnificent. I can't describe what the Brenta group is exactly. It's 42 kilometers long from north to south, 42 kilometers long and 13 kilometers wide.
One legend says that Brenta's irregular peaks are the remains of witches who were turned into stone.
E poi abbiamo quello che è per me il monumento della natura, che è il campanile basso.
Then there's what to me is nature's monument, the Campanile Basso. I think it used to be every climber's ambition, and even now it's still every climber's goal. The Campanile Basso is incredible. Just imagine, until 1889, the year it was conquered, it was called Campanile delle Strie, the Witch's Bell Tower.
A stretch of the Strada di Sissi winds past Madonna di Campiglio. The European trail starts in Bavaria and traces stages in the life of the Empress of Austria. Sissi didn't only like worldly pursuits and elegant balls, she also loved nature and open-air life. The princess's presence riding along these paths with Franz Joseph is still deeply felt by the local people. Not far from the meadows of Val Rendena, the Val Nambrone is covered in dense vegetation. For part of its course, the Sarca di Nambrone is hidden by a belt of moraines, emerging just before it tumbles into the lake. "80 lakes lie in the Adamello Brenta Natural Park, surrounded by solitary landscape. These small corners of heaven are a lovely opportunity to spend an afternoon fishing. Tranquility reigns, and the flourishing trout guarantee tight lines. Near Pinzolo, the mocking skeletons painted on the facade of the Church of San Vigilio depict the triumph of death. The fresco represents a dance macabre, where the wealthy and beggars alike are united by the same inexorable fate. The work was created by Simone Secondo Baschenis from Bergamo. In the 15th and 16th centuries, he also decorated the church's interior with frescoes narrating the life of San Vigilio, Trento's patron saint. There are also episodes from the New Testament, like Christ's conversation with the church elders and the crucifixion. The Val Genova joins the Val Rendena. According to a popular saying, the valley is so long that engaged couples traveling down it arrive at the end already married. The walls of the gorge carved out by the Sarca amplify the thunder of the Nardis Falls. The water cascades to the valley floor from a height of 120 meters. The knife grinders, called moleta, have become the heroes of a modern legend. Their story began as they struggled to push their heavy grinding wheels up the mountain slopes. But their labours have had a happy ending. Now a monument commemorates the success of this old trade of the Val Rendena. The atmosphere surrounding Castle Toblino has given rise to romantic legends. The last prince of the Madruzzos consummated a forbidden love inside the fortress, and it is said that when the moon is full, Lake Toblino is haunted by the unquiet spirits of the two lovers, who drowned in its waters. On the eastern shore of Lake Ledro, the water reveals a heritage from the distant past. Over 10,000 piles bear witness to one of the largest prehistoric human lake settlements, the only one of its kind in Europe. History has also left its mark near the shores of Lake Tenno. The medieval town of Canale still retains its timeless atmosphere. Restoration work has enhanced the beauty of its narrow streets between walls of stone. There are always many visitors, drawn by the events that enliven the streets, with markets and historical reenactments. In Canane, you may feel that you've traveled back in time, while Riva del Garda feels like a seaside resort. Lake Garda lies between Lombardy, the Veneto and Trentino. At its northernmost point, Riva del Garda is one of the lake's tourist centres, welcoming thousands of Italian and foreign visitors every year. The mild climate invites a trip along the lakefront or a stroll through the historic centre's picturesque streets. The windows of the houses open onto a picture postcard scene. The streets alive with the colours of flower petals and the fishing boats bobbing at the wharf. But the morning has just begun. The apparent calm heralds a day of energy and sport. The cliff, rising sheer from the water, is famous for its network of clear, tested routes. A true paradise for lovers of free climbing. In September, Arco becomes the site of the Rock Master competition, considered by many to be the World Free Climbing Championship. Garda's day of activities on land, water or in the sky is marked by two natural phenomena.
The two main winds of Lake Garda are the Peler, blowing from the north in the morning around 5 o'clock until about 11, then there's an hour's break when the wind doesn't blow like it's doing now, and then in the afternoon about 12 the Ora del Garda starts up. It's a thermal wind about 5 or 6 on the Beaufort scale, so it kicks up some waves. Very intense and constant. In good weather we get the Ora del Garda every day. Usually when the Peler's blowing at Torbole, the beginners come out on sailboats, catamarans or windsurfs. And the afternoon is the time for experts who want to train in extreme conditions.
The Trentino stretch of the lake is a temple to water sports that can hold its own against the world's most famous sea resorts. popular with sailing and windsurf enthusiasts. Thousands of athletes from Italy and abroad put their skills to the test with one certainty.
It's difficult to find a place like Torbole where we can rely on wind every day.
Lake Garda's history of grand regattas and international events recalls a more distant past. The modern yachts are the heirs to the ships of the Venetian Republic, which sailed these waters when the lake was ruled by La Serenissima. The Venetian period lasted almost 4 centuries, ending in the late 18th century with the arrival of Napoleon. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the Venetians also governed Rovereto, to the east of Garda. Trentino's second largest city plays an important role in the region's cultural life. Its artistic importance led Rovereto to be called the Athens of Trentino. Important names have left a deep impression here. Mozart played his first 2 Italian concerts in Rovereto, and De Pero's works are kept in the museum dedicated to the futurist artist. The most important art movements are displayed in the new March Center, the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art for Trento and Rovereto. The museum's cultural significance is universally recognized. The new center is based in an exceptional piece of architecture by Mario Botta.
When it opened in 2002, the Mart, even though it already inherited a 20-year history, I must admit that it was enthusiastically welcomed by the national and especially international network of museums, who see the Mart as one of the most significant presences on the Italian museum scene. The museum's constitution gives it the responsibility to talk about, describe, introduce and inform about contemporary art, modern art, contemporary art, and also 19th century art. It's a structure designed exclusively to target quality in conserving artworks, organizing exhibitions, displaying our artistic heritage, and supplying services.
Every evening, the tolling of the great bell of the fallen echoes over Rovereto. It strokes a symbol of peace. In fact, the bell was founded using cannons from the nations that fought the First World War. An evocative trail leaves the city to wind through cultivated fields and grassy meadows, past a number of fortresses. Avio Castle dominates the Val Lagarina, embodying over 800 years of the history of arms and knights. The guardroom walls tell the story of Castelbarco's military glories. The family lived here from the early 13th century until their defeat by Venice. The accuracy of the 14th century frescoes has great aesthetic, historical and cultural value, as it provides experts with precious information about the typical medieval weapons, clothes and hairstyles of soldiers and archers. But the castle's frescoes don't just depict scenes of war. A stolen kiss appears on the remains of a kitchen wall. Aristocratic intimacy is the preserve of the upper keep. Far from military and political turmoil, princes and ladies gave themselves to one another, surrounded by frescoes recalling stories of courtly love. Among monsters, imaginary beasts and hunting scenes, the god of love's arrows pierce the breast of a desperate kneeling knight and graze his lady. On the road from Rovereto to Trento, 250 meters of imposing walls shield Castle Beseno. The fortress is one of Trentino's largest and has a distinctive elongated shape. Its walls have resisted many a siege. Now, the battles are fought on the sports fields. On the high Trentino plateaus, recent history forms a setting for a number of athletic activities, like the 100 km dei Forti, climbing from 1,000 to 1,800 meters along roads that in the last century were part of the Austro-Hungarian lines of defense. The woods and valleys that witnessed First World War battles are now the site of many ruined fortifications. Here, the Austro-Hungarian High Command built a military hospital, digging straight into the rock. Through the highlands of Folgaria, Lavarone and Luserna, the mountain bike riders follow the tracks of war, surrounded by the invisible ghosts of fallen soldiers. In winter, these places become the background for the Ski Tour dei Forti, with more than 70 kilometers of ski trails studded with historic locations. Returning northwards, along the course of the River Adige, the regional capital is the only place to end our Trentino journey. The cathedral has dominated the piazza for 800 years, in Trento's geographic and historic centre. The first stones were laid on the site of the early Christian cathedral of San Vigilio. In June, the city celebrates its patron saint by dressing up for the Feste Vigiliane, a week packed full of internationally famous events, including the Palio dell'Oca, a test of skill with rafts racing along the course of the Adige. Buon Consiglio Castle is the symbol of Trento, standing on a rise behind the medieval walls. It's an imposing artistic jewel, built and decorated by a centuries-long succession of lordly residents. The frescoes adorning the walls and ceiling vaults reflected the search for beauty so typical of humanist culture. The rooms of Buon Consiglio Castle were a backdrop to the lasting power of the prince bishops, even before the Council of Trent. The walls of the Eagle Tower have preserved one of the oldest examples of 15th century international Gothic painting. The cycle of the 12 months depicts the passage of time, marked by the sun entering the celestial houses. While the nobility strolled or hunted, the people were busy working the land, sowing or harvesting the fields and vines. In the 16th century, Il Romanino painted frescoes on the castle's Venetian Gothic lodge, with its view across the whole historic centre. The civic tower of the Palazzo Pretorio and the cathedral bell tower recall the links between worldly and ecclesiastic power that long characterized the city and its lands. They loom above Trento's main square, where its townsfolk meet in the shade of Neptune's fountain. The fountain's sinuous forms echo the figures in the frescoes that have decorated the facades of the houses in the historic centre for 500 years. The road taken by the bishop princes in the exercise of their twofold power begins at the cathedral. Prince Bishop Bernardo Clesio built many noble palaces to embellish the streets with their Renaissance facades. Trento is the urban face of a region that can entrance its visitors with spells in many languages, offering them a vast heritage of art, history, nature, and culture. From the city, your eye travels upwards towards rocky mountains, streams, and rivers that enrich every corner of Trentino.